Welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into the fascinating topic of Mongol warfare. You might know the Mongols as the ultimate conquerors of the 13th and 14th centuries, but how did they manage to take over such vast areas of Asia? It wasn't just their fast cavalry and incredible archers. They had a secret weapon: adaptability. The Mongols were masters at adopting the tactics and technology of their enemies. This made them capable of defeating the big powers in China, Persia, and Eastern Europe. Imagine transforming from a nomadic tribe on the Asian steppe to experts in siege and naval warfare. That's quite the evolution. Now, it wasn't all about brute force. The Mongols also used diplomacy, espionage, and sheer terror to win battles before they even started. This combination helped them build the largest empire the world had ever seen. Their generals earned terrifying nicknames like the Hounds of War, and their soldiers were known as the Devil's Horsemen. Pretty intense, right? One key to their success was Genghis Khan, the guy who reorganized the entire Mongol state to focus on constant warfare. Under his rule, 98 units called Mingin were created, each supplying 1,000 soldiers. He also had a personal bodyguard of 10,000 elite troops known as the Kesiktin. These guys weren't just bodyguards, they trained other commanders too. Plus, they recruited soldiers from allies in conquered states, often outnumbering the Mongol troops in places like China and Persia. When Kublai Khan established the Yuan dynasty in China, Mongol armies became entirely professional. They promoted leaders based on merit, not just family ties. This motivated everyone because the spoils of war were shared equally. There was even a dedicated group, the Jark, to make sure everyone got their fair share of loot, from horses to high-quality goods. Discipline was super strict under Genghis Khan. If you disobeyed orders, you faced severe punishment, sometimes even death. But commanders had a lot of freedom on the battlefield, and that flexibility often led to victory. The Mongols were also logistical masterminds. Their campaigns in southern Russia and Eastern Europe between 1237 and 1242 were incredibly complex, with multiple armies coordinating perfectly. They had an amazing messenger service, the Yam, with posts stocked with supplies and fresh horses. They even used smoke signals for communication. They didn't just rely on their own people either. They recruited large numbers of non-Mongols, including Uyghur Turks, Kurds, Khitans, Koreans, and Chinese. These diverse forces played crucial roles in their invasions, like the attempts to conquer Japan in 1274 and 1281. In short, the Mongols were always ready for war, combining skill, strategy, and sheer ruthlessness to build their empire. Alright, let's dive deeper into what made Mongol warriors so formidable. Their training started young, with both boys and girls participating in athletic competitions, horse racing, wrestling, hunting, and archery. This early start meant that by the time they were warriors, they were already skilled with a variety of weapons. Mongol warriors, mostly men but sometimes women too, were proficient with battle axes, lances designed to hook enemy riders off their horses, spears, daggers, long knives, and occasionally swords. But their weapon of choice, the composite bow. This powerful bow could shoot arrows twice as far as those of their enemies. Thanks to their stirrups and specially designed saddles, Mongol archers could shoot accurately while riding at full speed. These saddles had high backs and fronts, giving better stability and allowing archers to shoot in any direction, even behind them. The composite bow was a masterpiece of engineering, made from multiple layers of wood, bamboo, or horn, making it both strong and flexible. It required significant strength to draw but could fire arrows with impressive accuracy and penetration. Arrowheads were usually made from bone and occasionally metal, while the shafts were crafted from wood, reed, or both. Fletchings were made from bird feathers. The design of arrows varied based on their purpose. Some were for close-range wounding, others for long-distance targets, some were poison-tipped, armor-piercing, or even designed to whistle as signals. A typical mounted archer carried 2 or 3 bows and about 60 arrows, 30 light and 30 heavier ones. Their gear also included a horsehair lasso, a coil of rope, an axe, a file for making arrowheads, a sewing repair kit, a leather bag for food, which doubled as a float for river crossings, 2 leather bottles for liquids, and a cooking pot. They slept in light versions of yurts, with 1 tent per 10 riders. For the Mongols, horses were everything. They were their transport, a symbol and measure of wealth, a source of food, and the key to their incredible mobility in warfare. Mongol horses were small but tough, with dense hair and excellent stamina, allowing them to travel 60 to 75 miles in a day. Each warrior had both light and heavy cavalry horses and typically managed up to 16 spare horses, giving them a vast range of maneuverability. On the battlefield, they communicated orders using gongs and drums, though interestingly, their initial attacks were always conducted in silence. And get this, horses even provided nourishment on long campaigns by having blood drawn from their necks, supplementing dry rations like cheese curd and cured meat. And now, let's talk about Mongol armor. The Mongols favored light armor to maintain their cavalry speed. Typically, their armor was made from thick quilted felt or leather. To strengthen this, they sometimes added strips of metal, bone, or hardened leather. However, plate armor and chainmail were rare among the Mongols. They did occasionally use captured enemy armor though. An interesting adaptation from the Chinese was wearing a silk undershirt. This clever trick made it easier to remove arrows since the silk would wrap around the arrowhead, protecting the wound and making extraction simpler. For head protection, Mongol warriors wore helmets made of iron or hardened leather, often featuring a neck guard and a central top spike or plume. Another option was the traditional Mongol fur hat with side flaps and an upturned brim. While infantrymen sometimes carried small circular shields made of wicker or hardened leather, cavalrymen typically didn't use shields. Horses, on the other hand, were sometimes armored too. Horse armor was made from the same materials as the rider's armor. Plate armor was usually limited to the horse's head, but some horses were completely covered with padded armor, and preparation was key to Mongol success in warfare. Before facing the enemy, they gathered intelligence through spies posing as travelers or defectors. These spies provided valuable insights into the enemy's strengths, weaknesses, and potential allies who could be swayed to support the Mongols. Ahead of major campaigns, Mongol leaders held grand meetings called kurultayis to meticulously plan strategies. Once in the field, Mongol armies moved swiftly and aimed to outmaneuver their opponents using speed and coordination. They sought to engage the enemy only when necessary and focused on maximizing results with minimal losses. Their cavalry units, typically consisting of around 1,000 men, were subdivided into smaller units for greater flexibility and control. On the battlefield, Mongol armies were organized into wings on either side of a central force and a vanguard. This organizational structure extended even to their camps. Despite often being outnumbered by their enemies, Mongol armies overcame this disadvantage through superior speed and tactics. A classic Mongol strategy was to attack with a small force and then lure the enemy into pursuing them, leading them straight into a larger Mongol force. Another favorite tactic was the tulugma, where heavy cavalry formed the front lines, followed by lighter units who would then move through gaps in the front lines to envelop the enemy. Ambushes were common, as were surprise attacks during adverse weather conditions like blizzards. The Mongols also employed unconventional tactics, such as using felt dummies on horseback to make their forces appear larger, or dropping leaflets from kites to sow dissent among besieged cities. But perhaps the most effective strategy was terror. After capturing a city, the Mongols often executed the entire civilian population, sparing only a few to spread fear to neighboring towns. This ruthless approach often led towns to surrender without a fight, hoping for mercy. The Mongols also used prisoners as human shields and mutilated the dead to instill terror in their enemies. And now, the Mongols weren't just masters of land battles, they also knew how to handle sieges and naval warfare. When they faced enemies hidden behind fortified walls, they quickly adapted. Siege warfare became a necessary skill against opponents like Song China, Persia, and Eastern European kingdoms. Initially, breaking down well-fortified cities tested Mongol resolve. But they were quick learners. They adopted gunpowder weapons like small cannons and bombs containing Greek fire, sulfur gas, or shrapnel, which they hurled over city walls. They even had rockets, triple-firing crossbows, and massive catapults powered by various means. Some of these siege weapons were mobile, while others were mounted on ships. Despite the bombardments, some sieges lasted for years. Take the example of the Song-fortified city of Xiangyang, which fell after a long siege involving battering rams and specialized catapults designed by Islamic engineers. Handling these static armies required a whole new level of logistical support compared to their traditional cavalry units. Supply trains managed by Mongol women played a crucial role in keeping the armies fed and equipped. As the Mongols expanded their empire, they also ventured into naval warfare. By the 1270s, they had their own naval fleet, boasting 5,000 ships and 70,000 sailors. These fleets, manned by Chinese and Koreans, invaded Japan and Southeast Asia. However, these large ships were mainly used as troop carriers rather than fighting ships. Once the troops were established on land, the cavalry would swoop in to secure victory. But despite their impressive conquests, the Mongols faced challenges and setbacks. Some cities proved too tough to crack, and logistical problems plagued their campaigns as they ventured further from their heartlands in Mongolia. Both invasions of Japan were thwarted by stiff resistance and storms, while campaigns in Southeast Asia were hindered by jungle terrain, heavy rains, diseases, and guerrilla warfare tactics. Even in China, the Mongols eventually succumbed to the rising power of the Ming dynasty. By 1368, internal conflicts, droughts, and famines weakened the Mongols, leading to their decline. In a way, one could argue that the once nomadic Mongols were ultimately defeated by their own transformation into sedentary societies.